When customers come into the Bell branch, I would like them to know that it's not just a place they can do their banking. They can come laugh with us, cry with us, pray with us. We want to be their friend, not just their bankers. My name is Courtney Frazier, and I'm the Bell branch manager. Happy Banking is different because our level of customer service that we offer to our customers and the personal relationships that we develop with our customers.
How are you? If I could ask you all to rise, please. And we'd like to welcome Pastor Jean Shelburne with the Anna Street Church of Christ to give her invocation.
Lord, if this meeting of our commissioners is like most of those in the past, nothing very spectacular will happen here today. We'll award a few proclamations, consider a resolution, approve half a dozen contracts. In other words, Lord, this will be one more routine day when the actions inside this chamber attract few headlines and less notice across our city. Few people will care what happens here today. Grant us, Lord, that all of us who participate in today's decisions do care, because we know that every vote cast, every action taken here today will change people's lives for decades to come. Even the most minor municipal code change may alter the way business is conducted, often costing or saving a lot of people a lot of money in the years to come. Only you, Lord, can possibly know how many lives will be affected by seemingly insignificant changes or by relatively small expenditures to improve city services. Give us the vision to know, Lord, that every action taken in this meeting will literally create the future, altering the lives of the people we may never see or know. With this in view, Lord, we pray that your grace and wisdom may shape all that we do and say here today. In the name of your Son, amen.
Thank you, Jean. If you'd join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have the pleasure of reading 3 proclamations now, so we'll come down forward. Please take a seat. Thank you. We have a proclamation today for the American Red Cross. I didn't see Chris Knight in the audience. Is there anyone here from Red Cross today? We'll save that for a future date. I would like Commissioner Green to do the second proclamation.
Okay, I have a proclamation here from the for Amarillo, Texas Safe Digging Month, and I understand that Jim Bob Sims with the High Plains Damage Prevention Council and Texas 811 is here. Can you come up? Great, and also, who's ever with you? Great.
Commissioner, if I may, Jim Bob Sims. Of course, there's one M. Sims, I'm a 2 M. Sims. However, when I was growing up, my name is James Harold Sims. My mom would refer to me as Jim Bob. And if she's mad at me, James Robert. But anyway.
So you're one consonant from being the same person?
Could be. We'll be emphasized.
I grew up in Happy, so this is pretty close to home for me.
You guys, we don't bite. You can get up.
Come on up here, guys.
Come on.
Gather around us, please.
I'm going to read this.
How are you? Thanks for being here.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate y'all very much.
Thanks for being here. How are you? Good. Paul, Paul, nice to meet you.
Thank you for being here.
How are you?
Les, nice to meet you. Thanks, guys. Come on, gather back here.
I'm going to read this proclamation, okay?
These are all representatives of not only the High Plains Damage Prevention Council, but Atlas Energy and New Star Energy, both here in Amarillo.
Well, thank you for being here. And as I said, this is Amarillo, Texas Safe Digging Month, so I will read the proclamation with my glasses on. Whereas thousands of times each year, the underground infrastructure in Texas is damaged by those who do not have underground lines located prior to digging, resulting in service interruption, environmental damage, and threat to public safety. And whereas in 2005, the Federal Communications Commission designated 811 to provide contractors and homeowners a simple number to contact utility operators to request the location of underground lines at the intended dig site. And whereas the High Plains Damage Prevention Council, a stakeholder-driven organization dedicated to the prevention of damage to underground utilities in Amarillo and the Texas Panhandle, promotes the National 811 notification system in an effort to reduce these damages. And whereas damage prevention is a shared responsibility, and by using safe digging practices, the contractors and homeowners of Amarillo can save time, money, and help keep our infrastructure safe and connected. Now therefore, we, the mayor and city commissioners of the city of Amarillo, Texas, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2012 as Amarillo, Texas Safe Digging Month, and encourage contractors and homeowners throughout Amarillo and the surrounding areas to always call 811 before digging. Safe digging is no accident. Given under our hands the seal of office this 20th day of March 2012 and signed by all of us. So I'll present it to you, Jim Bob.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much. And on behalf of Texas 811 and our 1,200 members across the state, including Atlas and New Star and High Plains Damage Prevention Council, we would like to present you with a beautiful green t-shirt, which will remind everyone that safe digging is no accident. 811, know what's below, call before you dig.
Thank you.
And I think I've got these.
Jim Bob, can I ask you a question while you're up here?
Yes, sir.
Now, just for us folks who really don't know a lot about this, now how deep are you talking about? Now, if I'm at my home as a citizen of Amarillo and I want to fix my sprinkler system, when do I need to be concerned?
The state law, which it is a law, Texas Utilities Code Title 5, Chapter 251, states that anytime you're going to be excavating at a depth of 16 inches or greater, we encourage folks, no matter what depth, to make the call. It's a free call and a free service. This panhandle weather, the erosions, landscaping, the grades are constantly changing. So depth can never be assured. So one free call to 811 will eliminate any guesswork.
How long does it take them to get out there?
State law requires the utilities to respond within 2 working days.
So if it's weekend and I don't want to dig in the garden, I can tell my wife.
So now, will somebody always have to come out? Or for example, if I'm going to plant a tree, can somebody just look at a grid or something and tell me whether it looks okay?
Each utility is probably a little different. Some of them may be able to look at their maps and give you an all clear. Other times they may actually send someone out to survey the property.
Very good.
I was totally ignorant about that, so I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I didn't warn.
Well, anyway.
Thank you all.
Thank you all for
We
being here.
appreciate y'all very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Thank y'all.
Is Maxine Westmoreland here? And anyone that you'd like to bring with you? We love having these young people up here.
Come on up.
Hi, gang.
Hi, how are you
What's your name? What's your name? What's your name? Nice to meet you. Step right up here. Yes.
Now, you gotta listen closely to this, because it doesn't have some of the meaning that you might put with it. And remember, we have these young children up here, so, because it's Kick Butts Day. And we're talking about cigarette butts. So, whereas nationwide, nearly 1/5 of all high school students grades 9 through 12 are current smokers, along with nearly 1 out of every 14 eighth graders. And whereas 3 million high school students are current smokers, and more than a third of all kids who ever try smoking a cigarette become new, regular, daily smokers before leaving high school. And whereas 1 out of 3 youth smokers will ultimately die prematurely from smoking-related diseases, unless current trends are reversed. And whereas smoking kills more than 400,000 Americans each year, representing more deaths than from AIDS, alcohol, car accidents, murders, suicides, drugs, and fires combined. And whereas most of these deaths could be prevented. And whereas Kick Butts Day is an annual national initiative sponsored by the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids that makes elementary, middle, and high school students leaders in the fight against youth tobacco use and exposure to secondhand smoke. And whereas the children of Amarillo, Texas will no longer tolerate the tobacco industry's efforts to manipulate them into buying lethal and addictive products through insidious advertising campaigns and marketing practices. And now, therefore, we mayor and city commissioners of the city of Amarillo do hereby proclaim Tuesday, March 20th, that's today, 2012, as Kick Butts Day 2012, and wish to stand up with the children of Amarillo, Texas, in opposition to the sale, advertising, and marketing of tobacco products to children. Given this under our hands and seal of office this 20th day of March 2012. So, Maxine, who's going to accept this?
Dick and Elise.
Somebody have something to say?
Yes.
You got the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. I am so excited about this group that has taken this on. Maverick Boys and Girls Club developed a video, and it's called Mavericks Against Tobacco. The video illustrates a few of the 4,000 dangerous chemicals found in tobacco, such as rat poisoning and arsenic. The video can be viewed on YouTube and Maverick Facebook. I want to thank Dick and Elise. Dick is the executive director of Maverick Boys and Girls Club, and Elise is the program director. They took this on just full strength ahead, along with the youth. The youth got so involved in it. And I want everyone to go on YouTube or the Maverick Facebook page and look at the video because it is phenomenal.
Very good.
Thank
Thank you, Max.
Y'all would like to say something? Go ahead. Come on.
Go ahead.
Actually, like I said, like Maxine was saying before, the kids had a blast. They learned about the different chemicals in tobacco, and when you really look at the YouTube PSA that they put together, they can tell you all of the chemicals they found that are in cigarettes, and they really took a stand against, not smoking. Some of them even went home and talked to parents and grandparents who are currently smoking and let them know what's in those cigarettes that they're putting in their mouths. So it was just a great opportunity for us to give our kids a chance to stand up for something positive.
This video was a kids-driven video, and I think if you take a look at it on the internet, you'll see that they were the drivers in it, and we are so proud of these kids and what they're standing up for.
Good for them.
Thank you all for what you all do.
Jim, we have- What did you do? What did you learn?
I learned that tobacco can contain over 4,000 different chemicals, including toilet bowl cleaner and car exhaust and many other things. And since all of my relatives have smoked once or twice in their life, I try to warn them, try not to smoke. I mean, I'm not saying they can't smoke anymore, because some of the ingredients will addict you to it. But I try to encourage them not to, and I think this day will help us a lot.
Good.
You're welcome. You're a little taller than our commissioner.
What I learned from this video was how it can kill you. Like, it's kind of a hard thing to describe, but all the chemicals that are in tobacco, they can really kill you, and if you actually wanted to try smoking, you might not want to start like dip and all that stuff because it really can majorly kill it. Like kind of, it's like people that sell it don't like care about your health. That's what I kind of figured out. And that's the thing
What I learned from learning this video was that the stuff in it is poisonous and it can get you addicted to smoking. And some of the stuff in it is like rat poison and toilet bowl cleaner.
There's some bad things in there,
I just want to say that I don't want my parents to get killed because all that stuff that's in it and the chemicals and how they can kill you, and there is 4,000 and I can't. I just don't want people to get killed by it and attend their children to it.
Would you like to say something? Your turn.
I've learned that there's bleach and vinegar inside of cigarettes, and I don't want my parents to, smoke on it because it's a bad thing to do, and I don't want their lungs to get all blacky and sucky on it.
Good job.
How old are you home? 11? 10? You're 9? How old are you? 12. Okay. Well, you're right. You don't want your parents to die of this, do you? Or your friends. I've never met anyone that's over 30 years old that still wanted to smoke, but one of you said the reason they continue to, what was that? They're addicted. Plain and simple, they're addicted. So the work you're doing to keep others, young people, away from this is really, really important, okay? Thank you for doing that. When I was 15 years old, my father died from smoking. And there were 9 of us. And it can affect you. It affects all of us. So you think about that. It's very important. Thank you for your work. I guess we'll get the Red Cross back and read that proclamation another day. There was no one here that came from the Red Cross. Okay. Maybe our error on the date. Anyway, good afternoon and welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Amarillo City Commission held this day at 3 p.m. Commissioners on the 3rd floor of City Hall. The first item for business today on today's agenda is the minutes. Attached is a copy of the minutes. Those minutes are in regards to the meeting from March 13, 2012. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes from that meeting? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move for approval of the minutes.
I second that motion.
All those in favor of the minutes?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes with a 5-0 vote. Presentation and discussion. 2012 City of Amarillo Water Presentation on Every Drop Counts, Every Drop of Water Conservation Campaign Kickoff. And Mr. City Manager, who is going to make that presentation?
Thank you, Mayor. If we could, I'd like to ask Mr. Emmett Autry, he's our Director of Utilities, to come up. Emmett and his staff were actually involved all week in teaching the school to water operators throughout the Texas Panhandles, but he's here today. Emmett provided this presentation last year, and he has greatly updated it and expanded it. think we'll all enjoy it. So even if you would.
All right, I had some help too. I'll say that. Mayor, Commissioners, good afternoon. As has already been said, it's that time of year again to do the conservation kickoff and the state of the water report. We reflect back on the drought of 2011, which is going to take a long time to forget. But it's a year to remember. It's also a year for learning on our part. It was the historic one-year drought. It broke all the records, just about every kind that you, including wind, I think. We had 50 days above 100 degrees last year. Previous record was 26. We had a record high temperature set of 111 degrees. I believe that someone said that was June 26th of last year. And I will tell you that I was in England at the time, and it was 76 degrees. So I missed out on that. It was not planned. Previous record was 109 degrees, and it was not that long ago. We only received 7 inches of precipitation. Previous record low was 9.56. Water consumption jumped to 18.6 billion gallons this past year. A normal annual consumption is in the neighborhood of 16 billion gallons. If you look at this chart here, that kind of gives the bad news. And you can see that this is rainfall records month by month in selected drought years. And that one, the lowest one, that ends up over there at 7 inches, that is the drought of 2011. So it kind of smashed all previous records. Thank you. This is what the map looked like at one point last summer, the drought map, if you will, and that darkest red color is considered exceptional drought conditions, which we spent a very long time in the exceptional drought conditions category. This is Lake Meredith last year, and it's about a foot lower as we speak than it was at that time. And you can see to the left of the intake tower that there's a large pipe going into the intake tower and a couple of pumps there. That for a long time, well, not for a long time, but for 3 months last year, CR&WA pumped the water out of the lake and into the intake structure so that it could then be pumped into to member cities. Another thing that you'll notice there is that the very bottom of the intake tower, including the mud slab that's under the bottom, is exposed. It's above water. Okay, 2012 State of the Water System. I'm kind of taking the approach of issues and answers, so I'll talk about issues and then I'll talk about answers. The effect of the drought, heat wave of 2011, and we've already seen some of that, and it's mentioned again here on this sheet. I'll talk about, on this screen, I'll talk about our water system, and it was tested absolutely to the maximum, as you all know, this past year. For a great deal of the summer, we would have all of our wells pumping 24 hours a day, day in and day out. We suffered a great deal of mechanical failures of the pumps because they're not really designed to run 24 hours a day, day after day. So we had to deal with that. We had increased breakdown of under equipment as well, as you'll see. It was very difficult for us at times to keep the holding reservoir, the 500 million gallon holding reservoir, near full, and at times it got down to half full or half empty, whichever, whether you're an optimist or a pessimist. We managed to keep the water pressure and flows near normal to the city, and we're really thankful that we were able to do that. Then the Carson County line broke. So we had to deal with that as well. Next slide. Okay, so this is what I said. I really said this to the employees last year. I said the worst thing that could happen would be for us to lose that 45 out of Carson County, and it happened. So we got to be careful what we say, because what we say could become a self-fulfilling prophecy. We'll say, however, to the applause really of people in the utilities division as well as others to get that land back in service within 49 hours was a major accomplishment. We lost about 60 million gallons of storage in the reservoir during that 49-hour period. So we're glad we got it back as quickly as we did.
But it never interrupted service to the citizens.
Never did interrupt service, never did cause loss of pressure in the system, mainly because we kept having a straw in the glass, so to speak. We had water instead of air to draw. What you're looking at here is an early picture before the repair crews got there of that 45-inch blowout. And that column of water shooting up into the air is approximately 30 feet in the air. A very large volume of water, somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 million gallons a day. That's what the leakage rate was. So the overhead lights make this difficult to read, sorry about that. So anyway, we used 18,623,000,000 gallons of water last year, calendar year. That equates to 57,152 acre feet, both of which are a record for the city of Amarillo, and a record that I would rather not see again, frankly. The normal calendar year is around 16 billion, so the other 2.6 billion that was used last year, I would put that right at people's yards and landscape. All of that difference and some of that 16 million baseline goes on grass and landscape during the year, during summer. And so I want to emphasize conservation even more as we go forward. So the consumption of the gallons per day per capita last year for all of the water that was produced, that's in town and out of town, water was 266 gallons per capita per day. If you subtract the out of town industries and city of Canyon from that, it was 230 gallons per capita per day. That went to other uses than the citizens of Amarillo. That's a high number. We like to see that number below 200. And it was just impossible last year because of the conditions, even with the conservation emphasis that we had ongoing on your part, Mayor, and others. It was still, I shudder to think what the conditions would have been if we didn't have that emphasis on conservation. And next slide, please. City of Canyon used just under 280 million gallons of water last year. That is not all of the water that they use. They do have their own water sources as well. And this is kind of a graphic representation of the last 6 years of water consumption in the city of Amarillo. If you go over to the far left, you'll see 2006, which was really a pretty high usage year, over 16 billion gallons. If you go further back in history, you'll see that there were some other high usages earlier. But what I want you to see is the population, the graphic, the land, population land there. The dip in there in 2010 is the census correction. And so we didn't really lose population at that time. It was a correction made by the census versus our other methods of determining population. But again, it shows the extra 2.6 billion gallons there, where 2011 stands out above the others. But what I want to point out is that we have a relatively flat, and if you throw out 2011, somewhat descending usage of water. Speaking of water, I may need some. Excuse me. But the population continues to increase, and we're still managing to hold the land pretty well, with the exception of 2011, and it was an exceptional year. This is the daily consumption, which you can see that for 2011 it was above 50 million gallons per day, 50.6 if I remember correctly.
That's for the whole year.
Excuse me?
Those numbers are for the whole year.
Yes, sir, that's the annual average. Absolutely. This is, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. If I can talk around that, I'll do my best to do that. Try not to embarrass myself. It's a case of bronchitis that I'm trying to get over.
Wait a minute.
That'll work. Thank you. To the rescue. I appreciate that. I've been standing up all morning teaching over at Civic Center. This is the water usage versus gallons per capita per day that is shown here. You can see that it tracks pretty well with the water usage as you would expect. Now this one, this pie graph here represents the different categories of water users, major categories. And if you look at the 55.55%, that's residential. And then you also have in there multifamily residential, which is 6.1% adjacent to it. That's single and multifamily residential usage for a total of 61.6%, which is much higher than we've seen in the past. I think the highest we've seen for residential in the past was 54%. So, and then you have your industrial at 14.6%, and going on around to commercial, I believe that is, and then the smaller usages that are pointed out there. You have to look at the key in order to know which one is which. So that's the way the water is used. That's 1.9%. Let me see here. No, the 4% is the city of Amarillo, and 1.9% is the Amarillo Independent School District of the total used for the year. Please feel free to ask questions. I know you will. So those were the issues. Now the answers. Number one, Potter County well field. It's an additional 20 million gallons per day. So we can look at next year and we can say, okay, we got more water coming to town than we did in the worst case scenario. And that will be online fully up and running, even with some of the delays that we've had by income tax day. Does that make you feel good? Okay, and some suggested approaches that we've come up with our conservation emphasis is the continued effort by the conservation team to preach conservation. Revisit perhaps someday the landscaping and related ordinances to maybe have some incentives for things like cool season grasses change out to warm season. Think about drought tolerant landscaping and xeriscape, possible incentive for rainwater harvesting systems. These are some of the things that we've been talking about that may come to your attention at some point in the future. The WaterWise education program for 5th graders, the Panhandle Groundwater District does that in the Potter County schools, and I would like to think that we could pick up the baton on that and do the WaterWise teaching in the Granville County schools. Just a thought that we have there. And increased public exposure through any means that we can get more exposure of the theme of conservation out to the public, including town hall meetings and media and all of those things. We meet regularly, not regularly, we meet often with Mr. Frigo leading the charge. And let's see, these are the things that we've done this year so far. On February 8th, the Panhandle Water Symposium, and then we operated a conservation booth in the remodeling convention recently, the 25th and 26th of February. We're in the process of operating booths on this past weekend and the coming weekend at the Botanical Gardens, kind of an open house celebration. We will be operating booths for High Noon on the Square, as we did last year, and also Starlight Theater, as we did last year. And any other opportunity that we get to emphasize conservation.
Emmett, who makes up the conservation team? Is it all city employees?
No, it's not, and thank you for bringing that to my attention. We do have some folks coming from the outside, from the green, I just got through saying it. Botanical Gardens, thank you, Derek, you saved my life. Botanical Gardens, and we have help from people who work for Panhandle Groundwater District that come and sit in the meetings with us. And I don't think that we're closed to anybody else showing up as far as that goes. We've talked about the possibility of having citizens join us and help us out with it. So it's not all together, it is mostly city employees. Okay, so these are our water sources here. If you look at that quickly, I added a little twist to it down at the end. I looked at the Amarillo interest in the CRNWA water rights, and which is 40.61% of CRNWA water rights are the city allocation, if you will. And when you add that to our own holdings of 252,000 plus, then Amarillo has claim to over 430,000 acres of water rights, mostly undeveloped, which is a lot of wisdom. And so we go through those very quickly. This is the oldest water rights that we have out in Randall and Dale Smith County. This is the remaining water rights in Hartley County. And by the way, both of those go back at least to the 1950s. Okay. And here's Potter County on the left, and Randall County, Potter County on the left and Carson County on the right. These are both developed and being developed. 1950s on Carson County, and 2011, 2012, very fresh for Potter County. And this is the City of Amarillo water rights in the Roberts and Ochiltree County areas. And this gives you a kind of a 5,000-mile view, overview of all of what you just saw. That's a lot of water rights. The green is CRWA water rights, and as I said, 40.61% of that is City of Amarillo's interest. Okay, so we had our top 10 round table. We got together with the top 10 water users within the City of Amarillo. City of Amarillo was not included, nor were the ISDs or Amarillo College. But next year we plan to bring them in, and if they will, and we hope to have something like a top 20 next year. We had a great reception on this. 100% of the top 10 was represented, in some cases by 2 or 3 people in attendance, and the flow of ideas across between the tables and between these entities was great. Yes, sir.
A little taste. Those top 10 water users represent how much of our use?
How much of our use? 16%. Yes, sir. 1 out of every 6 gallons. And they also used in 2011 8.3 million gallons per day for those top 10. And interestingly, we found out that one of the first questions that I asked everyone present is, how many employees are there in your entity? And we added them up, and we're through in the City of Amarillo for good measure. 18,900 jobs represented by the top 10 in the City of Amarillo. A big input for the economy. Most of them had some good conservation measures in place. I'm very pleased to see that. Especially Tyson, they have about 20 efforts that they're now making that they didn't make a few years back, that they're now making to reduce water use within their process. The hospitals were great on it, and some of the others as well. Okay, this again is our capacity to produce water. We had the capacity in water rights, but now you just add these up and you can see that without Lake Meredith and not counting our balancing reservoir, 89 million gallons per day. But with Lake Meredith, it runs you know, at normal elevations, runs 27 to 30 million gallons per day. We'd like to see that back. And with our reservoir, we can go 30 days with an extra 16 million. So we're in good shape. Our record high daily usage of 91 million gallons a day. That was 20 years ago. 20 years ago. So that tells me that we do have a conservation program. Because if you follow the population line, we should be way above that. This gets kind of busy right here. Infrastructure condition. What does infrastructure condition have to do with water conservation? Well, you saw the water line a little while ago, and we get quite a few breaks every year. I'm going to summarize this because it gets kind of wordy, but I didn't hear Jared say amen to that. But here's the bottom line. Approximately 60% of the underground water lines in the city of Amarillo are over 50 years old. We were a young city until 15 or 20 years ago, pipe-wise, when you look at infrastructure in the ground. But now we've got pipes that have been in the ground since 1927. So those are approaching 100 years old. So what I'm saying is, as the system deteriorates, we will have to have a more aggressive 3 R's. And the 3 R's are repairs, rehabilitation, and replacement efforts for these old lines. And in addition to that, we have to be concerned with growth as well. So we have 1,100 miles of water pipe, not counting our transmission lines and our well collection lines. Okay. As far as our pump stations go, the buildings generally are in good condition, have been kept in good condition, but we will be faced with upgrading pumps and motors, some electrical switchgear, and when we do that, I would like to go to variable frequency drive controls because that is electrically efficient. I'd like to pay some of the cost of that by increased electrical efficiency. This is our, we're currently ending or getting close to ending a wastewater master plan, and out of that master plan is an asset management plan that's being put together. And the asset management plan is based on comparison of risk if something fails and consequence if it fails. If you'll go to the next slide, please. That's a risk consequence table right there. So what we do across the top on consequences is it insignificant, is it minor, is it moderate, is it major, is it severe? What is the level of consequence if we lose that infrastructure? And then on the left, what is the likelihood? That's the risk. What's the likelihood that this thing is going to break? Well, the older it is, the more the likelihood. And a lot of this we can see with our eyes because we can run televisions through the sewer lines and we can see what the damage is. And then you put that together and you prioritize the projects on the basis of how do I get the most bang for the buck? And that's the way we want to go forward. Once this is fully in place, our people are excited about it. It will save money, and we will be able to get more done over the long run, more effectively. All right, that concludes my presentation, even with my rattly voice and my water. Thank you. Next slide, please. I think we had one more. Are there any questions?
Did you say you'd like to see 2.6 billion gallons less used this year? Is that what that was?
Did I say what?
How many billion gallons less would you like to see the city of Amarillo use this year?
Three or four. I'd like to see, but normal is, over the long run, normal is running around 16 or just under 16 million gallons per day. If you throw out 2011, 2011 wrecks the whole database to some extent. But yeah, I'd like to see our conservation program steadily strengthening so that we can maintain a baseline of about 16 billion gallons per year, long-term average.
So that's 2.6 billion less than we did last year.
That is correct, Commissioner.
Didn't we save during that period where we were promoting water conservation about 8 or 9 million gallons a day? Isn't that what we calculated?
Yes, sir.
So significant.
Well, and we can do better, and we will. And you've got a team that's working on this, and you may hear from us once in a while through Mr. Frigo. We appreciate the opportunity.
Any other comments?
Well, a comment that we're approaching the time of year when the water usage starts going up.
Yes, sir.
People start fertilizing their yards, they start watering their yards. When will the effort to communicate this to the community on water conservation begin? Because it is so
Right. Commissioner, we think it has begun.
okay.
Through the things that we've done already and the things that we plan to do. I'll be quite honest, I've been accused of being a media hog, and there's probably some truth to that, because I think the media is a good outlet to get the word out.
Amen.
And so I'm ready to, and I've asked the media on several occasions to come and talk to me whenever they think they have a story to talk about related to water conservation. I'm glad to talk to them. And we're planning a lot of things for the spring and summer. We considered the top 10 roundtable, which I found that to be really exciting. We consider that kind of our unofficial kickoff but we had done a couple of things before that already. Actually, we're on a year-round basis. I received water waster letters in February, or phone calls. People reporting water waste, and I send letters out to the folks that, one of them, they have a broken sprinkler, they didn't know it. Sorry, Commissioner.
It's so important, and we found out last year in the crisis year that our citizens will respond if we get the word to them. And it's not a Nazi operation where we're asking them to turn in their neighbors. A lot of times the neighbors don't know if their sprinklers are not performing properly. The businesses don't realize that. The water is done at night and they're closed, so they're not there.
Exactly.
So like any of these systems, we can keep going. This commission attended a water symposium here a month or so ago, over here at our Civic Center.
Yes,
and it was very impressive, but something that I wrote down that I think is so telling. Last year, 1,011 public systems were on some type of water conservation orders. 1,011 communities. 647 were on mandatory schedules, not voluntary, mandatory schedules. In other words, 2/3 of them. 364, or 1/3 of them, were on voluntary schedules like we. And then 52 prohibited any kind of outdoor watering.
Right, and that was in the state of Texas.
That was in the state of Texas.
You know, Commissioner Sims, the meeting that you were talking about was packed. And so the only good thing that came out of that drought was that people started talking about conservation very seriously. In fact, we as a commission looked again at our drought contingency plan and made it more workable, I think.
Well, I'd like to hear a comment on what we predict will happen with the upgrade of our drought contingency plan from either Emmett or the city manager. We know we've upgraded that. We put some things in there that could have tripped some triggers last year. If it's as bad as last year, what will be different this year from what we passed?
I think probably, if it would help me out, probably the greatest difference that you have coming into this year is with the full production capability of the Potter County well field. You have in effect replaced the Lake Meredith allocations that we don't have and may not get. So with that being true, the drought contingency plan that we studied and we upgraded last summer, if you'll recall, the biggest change that was made to that was to go to kind of a percent of capability, or when our demands hit so much of what we're actually able to produce at a given point. Plus, we now factor the 500 million gallon reservoir into those calculations. If we had had that in place at this time last year, it would have tripped. There were a couple of times that it was within just a day or so, it would have tripped. This year,
One day.
One day. This year, with the additional supply, I don't see us going, should not see us going into the mandatory drought contingency plan. Again, mainly because of the Potter County well field. Also because, as you've already mentioned, I think the general public just greatly accelerated and advanced the importance of water and water conservation as a result of last summer. Something that was in the presentation that I really don't want to lose sight of. We've held about a 16 billion gallon a year average for about 6 years now, despite the growth in population, which means each individual person had been using less. Not the case last year. The individual water use went up by over 30 gallons per person per day. I mean, just a huge change last year. But I think Emmett and his staff, working with the Groundwater District, working with Canadian River, another year like last year, if it's no worse, we should be able to handle well. The best effect from that, though, will be to see those voluntary conservation efforts perform as well as they did last year, and hopefully even greater.
If we had not, let's say we go into next year, we didn't have that campaign, and we used 8 to 9 million more gallons a day, we would certainly trigger something.
It absolutely could.
Yeah, so we have to keep up that voluntary effort at the very least to maintain the efforts, and encourage more people to include themselves in that, understand it's their responsibility that we save every drop of water we can.
If I may be bold, something that the thought that is going on in our conservation team is there another factor that we can add that is called, are we in a certain level of drought, area-wide or statewide or whatever, that would trigger some level of mandatory reduction? That's an idea. That's all it is, and I'm probably improper even bringing it up now, but.
No, I think we've got to discuss that. This commission is very concerned about it.
Emmett, I just want to thank you and all your staff, because you all do a yeoman's job with our water department. I think we're very fortunate to have a strong a group of people that know their business inside and out, including our city manager. So thank you all for doing everything that you do. You make us proud.
I'll pass that on to the employees. I'd like to thank the Penn Groundwater District for agreeing to put together a booth for our regional school that's going on. They have a conservation booth over there so that the people who work in the business can think conservation when they go away.
Cole's here.
Big Cole's here.
Cole, I think Joy is here as well.
That's Alice in Wonderland. Wonderland.
Alice in Wonderland.
She plays Alice in Wonderland.
Okay. That's not you back there? Okay, I got you. Emmett, what year did you go to work for the city of Amarillo?
The first time?
Yeah.
1964.
So I was 14 years old then, and this man's been doing a yeoman's effort. If we could get more employees like him, I think he's 3 to 1. I don't know. I don't think the employees would even resist saying that's the correct number. I think we get a yeoman's effort out of you. We appreciate all that you've done, all your career for the city.
Well, thank you. What makes all the difference is I enjoy what I'm doing.
Sure you do. We can see it.
And I appreciate the support. My people do
and
too.
for all your staff too.
Yes,
wonderful.
thank you.
Thank you
very much.
And the groundwater districts too. Thank you.
We're working together as never before.
Well, we're going to have to this year too.
All right. Thank you for your time. No other questions?
Every drop counts.
Every drop does count. It sure does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I can go back and teach.
There we go. We got you out of there for a little while. Okay, ordinance number 7321. This is the first reading of an ordinance amending the Amarillo Municipal Code, Chapter 16-3, Traffic, and Chapter 2-6, Boards and Commissions. These changes are designed to remove the city driveway and parking manual from the current ordinance and to place the authority for revisions of the city traffic engineer with the city traffic engineer, subject to public notice, hearing requirements, and comments from the Amarillo Traffic Commission. Are there any questions about this ordinance as it's presented in our packet? Any questions from the audience about this ordinance? Any questions from the commission? Not, I'd entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance number 7321 for the first reading of that said ordinance.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of ordinance number 7321?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes with a 5-0 vote. Appointments, boards and commissions. Appointments are needed to the following boards: Tax Increment Reinvestment, Zone Number 1, Board of Directors. It's a 3-year term. We have nominations for those positions.
We do, Mayor. I would like to nominate for reappointment Scott Bentley as a City of Amarillo appointee. I would like to recommend John Van Blanchard for reappointment as an AISD appointee. I'd like to recommend Richard Brown, who is a City of Amarillo and chairman, for reappointment. I'd like to recommend H.R. Kelly, who was originally the Potter County appointee, for reappointment. And Sonia Letson is leaving the Tax Instrument Reinvestment Zone with our thanks. And in her place, I'd like to recommend Mr. John Betancourt.
I second.
Okay, any questions about those appointments? Any comments from the floor, from the commission?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Well, Richard Brown, that's his reappointment, but also reappointing him as chairman.
That was
Because
going to
we
be
have
my
that
comment.
authority,
Yeah, that is what your motion is.
That is what my motion was.
Great, okay. That's very important. He's been an unbelievably productive member of the boards. Okay, no other questions? All those in favor of these appointments as presented?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes with a 5-0 vote. Consent agenda. It's recommended the following items be approved: that the city manager be authorized to execute all documents necessary for each transaction. A is the purchase of radio network repeaters. B is the purchase of computer network hardware and licensing. C is the award of Hamlet Park splash pad. D is the award of 2012 arterial street overlay project. E is the award of former police department court buildings demolition project. F is the approval of the fire department heavy rescue training course. G is the approval of City of Amarillo investment policy. H is the approval license and hold harmless agreement. I is the dedication acceptance of water line easement. And that is a full agenda of consent agenda. Do we have any items that need to be removed for separate consideration by the commission? If not, is there any discussion about these? I think there's some things that we'd like to hear a little bit about. I think we are able to say that there's some extremely good progress in our community with several of these projects. So I might ask the city manager first if I would like to see us talk for a second about the Hamlet Park splash pad.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd be glad to. The Hamlet Park splash pad is just a tremendous and exciting project. Over the last little bit, tremendous and substantial improvements have been made to Hamlet Park. Recently, we approved the new walkway and the lighting that would go with that. There's a new playground at Hamlet Park. The project that we have today is a new splash pad. A splash pad that's funded by the Community Development Block Grant Programs, Mr. James Allen and his group. It's a unique splash pad. It's a little bit of a smaller one than some, but it's very uniquely tailored to fit Hamlet Park. And in fact, kind of the centerpiece of that, the biggest one of the spray mechanisms that's out there, has its real mascot as part of it, sitting on top of it. So neat to be able to do it. I think it's even more exciting to be able to do it and tailor it directly to that location as we are. So anyway, we're pleased to be able to do it. The goal is to have that splash pad function with the neighborhood children able to play in it by Memorial Day 2012.
And that would make the 8th splash pad, correct?
That is correct. That would be 8.
And that is also, most of those have happened in, well, I think all of them have happened in the oldest areas of town which require replacement and repair. And so that is the 8th one in some of the areas of town that need it most.
Correct.
Good. Great job. If you haven't seen the kids playing on a splash pad, it's fun to just go watch them. You're going to be tempted to walk underneath it if we get as hot as last summer. Okay, the other one that I was wanting to see if you'd make a comment about is the street arterial overlay project. I think that's a phenomenal effort to catch up on something that we got behind on.
Certainly, Mayor, be glad to do that as well. This is part and parcel of the item you had last week, where we awarded the reconstruction project for Hillside and 58. The one we have today is not reconstruction, but rather overlay. This is where we go into our main streets in town, repair any of the damage that might be in place, mill off a certain portion of the top of the existing asphalt, and then put the new asphalt on. The project this year that we're bringing forward is actually a little more than 2 tons. We're covering more than twice the number of miles that we've typically been able to do. This is due entirely to the additional funding that was provided for the street program in the current budget. It's going to be a challenge to do it, but we're glad to have that challenge. Look forward to getting there. As we're able to accelerate these maintenance projects, certainly like this one here, we'll begin to make dramatic progress not only in catching up on our arterial streets, but then not allowing those overlay cycles to continue to slip. So from a staff standpoint, we very much appreciate the opportunity to do this, and we're looking forward to it. There's 10 existing arterial streets or segments of those streets that we'll hit, and they're spread over a wide area of town. So we're ready to go.
Good. Comments?
May I suggest with our new employees on the gross, in regards to some kind of get this information of what streets are going to be addressed to the meeting. Because I have people asking me, stopping me and asking me, now what part of 58th or what part of Hillside, and you know, what's going to be done about this street or that street. I think it would behoove us, not only with the print media, but with the television media, because I know that there's some nights that they're looking for news. And this would be something I think would be good to be exposed to our community.
I think it's important that we take a long-term look, because we get questions each week about, well, is my block going to be included? Is my street going to be included? And our plan would be, and I would ask your remark on this, Mr. Atkinson, that if we can continue this, if sales tax continue to raise, and if we were able to continue to fund at current rates, we would intend to keep moving forward on this, barring other changes in the commission. We want to move forward and keep working on these streets, correct?
That is correct. It'll be one of your budget priorities that we'll bring to you this summer.
It could actually cover the entire city within 4 to 5 years. Is that correct? From what get us back up to where our maintenance is about every 7 to 10 years.
It might take slightly longer than that, but
it's a lot of miles.
There's a lot of miles, but we're making such a good jump start on that this year that we'll get there quickly.
Would there, Mr. Mayor, would there be a possibility that we could put, you know, the streets that are under overlay now and the future ones on the website so people could look?
We can sure post the ones that we have approved and that we propose to do. We'll provide a list during budget that is a general order of where we see both a reconstruction and an overlay. We'll be glad to do that. Those do change as we move. I hate to leave someone with the impression that we've approved the project for a following year when in fact something might cause us to move in a different direction.
Yeah. Could we do like 3 months in advance, or is that too much?
I think we would do it year by year. We would approve those on a yearly basis.
So these can be posted so people can understand how it's going to affect them.
Absolutely.
Last week or this week.
Right. Let's try and get that on the website. That'd be great. As you have with the resurfacing, not resurfacing, but what's the next step down?
Seal coat.
The seal coating. You now have that process up there in video form so people can see what the steps are and how it will affect them. It's there on our website so they can view it. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's we've currently got that off the website. The video was produced. We ran it last year at the end of the season.
Okay.
We approved our projects this year. We'll put that back up as well.
Last item I think we're all real proud to have on here is the award of the former police department court building demolition project. So we have now taken out all the asbestos, and the next step will be to put some shovels on the ground to move towards revitalizing our downtown. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor.
I think it's pretty exciting. Any comments?
$100,000 below bid, right? Below what we budgeted, 60,000? Okay, 60,000.
Well, there was another savings through asbestos.
This one plus the asbestos would be about $100,000 savings.
Okay, any other comments about the consent agenda? Any from the audience? If not, I entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor of the consent agenda as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes with a 5-0 vote. Okay. This concludes the agenda for today's meeting. I will ask that we are able to come down and do our proclamation for Red Cross. I received notice they were dealing with United Way at a meeting there, a very important meeting, and we're welcoming them, so we'll move down. But first, before we do that, I'd like to get comments from the general public, if that's okay. Normally at this time, it's customary to allow citizens of the community with matters pertaining to city policy, programs, and services to speak to the commission. And the floor will be open for those comments at the end of that, we will have our proclamation. Any comments from the citizens this week? Thank you for attending. We're going to conclude with the, excuse me.
This is kind of a point of personal privilege, but this is the only place I can get it in, but I want it as part of the record. I'm sure that those of you out there started receiving your new phone books this last week. Mine, the Yellow Page book was delivered. I understand that they have begun the process of the AT&T phone book. And I don't know how to address this, but I have verified my phone, my name and my phone number and home address are not listed in the Yellow Page phone directory. And for, I don't know, 60 years, I've been listed in any phone book that was out there. And I have campaigned before that I'm in the phone book, and I have told people that if they want to contact me, I am in the phone book. I don't try to hide. But I'm not going to be in the Yellow Page phone book this year. And they have heard from me and gotten a little taste of my anger. But I am going to be in the AT&T, so if you use the phone book, use the AT&T book. Now, got that off my chest.
Got that off your chest, Commissioner. We're going to move down to the floor and present this, and I'd like to ask Chris Knight and TJ to please come forward if they would, please. Well, it's our pleasure to read a proclamation regarding American Red Cross. So let me begin. Whereas the American Red Cross has touched many lives in Amarillo as well as across the country and around the world, and whereas during American Red Cross Month, we thank those who contribute to the mission of Red Cross, whether through time, money, or blood, and we invite others to support Red Cross in helping people in need down the street, across the country, and around the world. And whereas the Red Cross is synonymous with helping people and has been doing so for more than 130 years throughout the past, the American Red Cross launched hundreds of disaster relief operations in the United States to help people affected by fires, floods, hurricanes, or tornadoes. And whereas in Amarillo and 13 surrounding counties, the Red Cross works tirelessly through its 4 employees and 100 volunteers to support us when disaster strikes, when someone needs life-saving blood, or to comfort a helping hand. The comfort of a helping hand, it provides 24-hour support for members of the military, veterans, and their families, and provides training in CPR, aquatic safety, and first aid. And whereas for nearly 100 years, the United States presidents have called on the American people to support the Red Cross and its humanitarian mission. Our community depends on the American Red Cross, and because it is not a government agency, the Red Cross depends on support from the public to continue its humanitarian work. It is especially important at these challenging economic times we impact the Red Cross and many people of our community and across the nation with our support. Now, therefore, we mayor and city commissioners of the city of Amarillo do hereby proclaim the month of March 2012 as American Red Cross Month. Signed into the hands of the mayor and all 4 commissioners. We congratulate you for your work and invite you to make a comment if you'd like.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you.
Well, Mayor, thank you. City Commissioners, thank you very much. In the brief amount of time I've been with the American Red Cross, which is all of 9 weeks now, I have discovered a very, very, very complex and honorable organization. And as I've got into it and seen what it's about, I'm very happy to be part of it. I appreciate this proclamation very much and what it states. Mayor, the American Red Cross has been here helping the people of Amarillo for over 100 years. And I commit to you that the reorganized Red Cross will be here for at least another 100. I commit that partnership to you, and thank you for this today.
Could I ask you to make a comment on your position and on your background?
Certainly.
Sir, please.
I'm a retired naval officer, retired after 31 years in the United States Navy in November of 2011, and began this job as the Chief Executive Officer for the North Texas region of the American Red Cross. My region's job is to support, enable, and resource the chapters across all of North Texas, serving 111 counties, 9 million people. And the Panhandle is part of that enterprise. So it's my job to support Chris in delivering that Red Cross service to the curb of every family in Amarillo that needs it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, TC, thank you. Chris, would you like to add anything as a new director?
It's all good. Thank you so
All
much.
right, thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Thank you all for this. Much obliged.
The meeting stands adjourned. Thank you for your presence today and for your patience. Thank you.